All right, welcome back. I'm just going to roll right back into this. So, yesterday I was going to do some panel variations, some color variations in the panels, which I did. And then this morning I did my accent color, and this is a light gray. It's not white. I almost never use white on anything, much too bright, and then you have nothing to highlight with. I played around with some washes, mostly on the engine, and actually that was again last night. And here's the thing. Actually, I did a bunch of little things, like I was just adding some little greebly detail with grays and an ochre, just to pull out some of the details. It gives the whole thing a little bit more visual punch. It adds scale to the piece. It's real helpful in sort of providing that more visual interest, more things going on. And then I realized that I was sort of getting a little farther down into the details than I wanted to before I did things like the accent color. But in doing the experiment, what I discovered was I really don't have to worry so much about getting the surface color wet and having it bubble up and peel and do all kinds of other things. So yeah, I even experimented with the chipping effect along here, and it looks really good. It's very, very exactly what I'm looking for. And I think perhaps, because of the combination of both the lighter hand with the hairspray, and of course my red coat is probably a lot thicker than my test coat was on that piece of plastic, and perhaps also that it sat for a lot longer curing out before I started playing with it. So all those things combined meant that I really didn't have to worry about over moisturizing and then having the paint bubble up. And also, it means that I don't have to worry so much about doing washes and how that's going to affect the paint. So all is well. And somebody else said, "Oh gosh, I wish I had my computer open to YouTube right now because I'd really like to give you a shout out." But there was a comment made on the video that said that I could also have clear coated before doing my washes, and that would have also helped. And yes, absolutely, absolutely. And that was a great idea that I should have thought of myself, but I did not. In any case, so we're moving on. Oh, and when I went to go grab the masking tape to do the accent color, by the way, Wolf Gray, I believe, Wolf Gray from Vallejo Game Color, Game Color, Game Air. I use the Game Air. I discovered my painting templates from Starship Troopers. So these were actual screen used, sort of, the templates that we use to create panel variations on the surface of the Roger Young and other starships in that movie. I don't think this one actually necessarily saw any use because it has no paint on it, but clearly this one did, and to a lesser extent this one did. And this one's funny. This one says right here, it says, "Loop this, Pete." And the reason it says that is because the director of photography for Second Unit, who's the guy who is shooting all of our models, his name was Pete. I can't remember Pete's last name. But if you go on to IMDb, you'd probably be able to find him. So he'd be the Second Unit director of photography. Anyway, he used to like to use a jeweler's loupe to look at aspects of the model, which is really just kind of insane because you'd almost never get that close to any of the models. So I think it was Henry who made these. Henry Darnell decided that it would be funny to have a, stencil on one of, spray onto the ship. It said loop this Pete. But anyway, I saved these because they're just cool, and you never know, they might get used for something. But yeah, so I thought I'd show you. But so what I'm going to do now, what am I going to do now? I think I'm going to continue on with picking out some of these details. Now, like I said, I already did some of that. So you can kind of see these little pops of gray, little greeblies here and here and over here. And I think I need to do a bunch more of that. And it's really just brushwork. Go in and hit it with a brush. And then I will probably, at that point, I'll do chipping. And I'll come back and we'll actually do some of that here. You don't need to watch me hitting little panels of with gray. It's really just unnecessary. And I don't know, I could always pick out the windshield in there, the cockpit glass, and other little details like that. I also did a couple of these in a different color, as if it had launched a couple of the escape pods and then replaced them, but hadn't had a chance yet to have them repainted. But I actually need to go in, and because the escape pod is really just the upper portion, I accidentally painted the lower ring, and that shouldn't be like that, so I can fix that. So yeah, so that's where we are at the moment, and so I'm going to be moving on and getting some of that little detail work done. I'll come back and we'll play with chipping, and so I'll see you in a bit. As you might be able to see, I don't know, I was going to say as you can see, but I don't know that that's necessarily true. I've added a lot more little greebly detail, and the effect is looking pretty good. It's the kind of thing you can always come back and do more of, so I'm going to be going, bouncing around from here to there and trying to make sure that everything looks good as I go. So I think what we can do right now is do some chipping. So I have a little sculpting tool that I'm going to use. It's metal, but because it's all rounded, I'm not worried about it scraping and going too deep. And I've already played with it a bit, so I already know that it can work in this capacity. So I'm just going to wet this down. And I'm going to take my little tool and I'm just going to start touching it to the surface and getting the scratches to pull up. The chips, I should say, not so much scratches. As I've said in the past with other weathering projects, a lot of times this is really just about trying to come up with some sort of story to why this has happened, why things look the way they look. And with the chipping, I feel like it's more of a sort of general age and maybe micrometeorite hits. You never know. But it's done in a kind of random fashion. And so I think what I'm attempting to do here is do it more in exposed areas and less in recess areas. At the end of the day, it just needs to look right, whatever that means to you. There's a strangely, kind of artistic feel to this. You don't know. There's no path. There's no specific, like, oh, well, this is the way this should work. Like, no, it just sort of needs to look real. All right, let's flip this around. And since the ship is going to be fairly weathered, I want a reasonable amount of chipping over the whole surface, but I don't want to overdo it. I'm going to keep them pretty small. Small but numerous. As the water sits on the paint, it gets softer and softer. So if at first you don't succeed, you can just wait a little bit and come back to it, and then it'll be fine. So that's how that's turning out. And you don't need to watch the whole thing. I'm gonna work on this a bit, and then I think we'll do some washes, and I'll come back for that onto the camera. So see you in a bit. Okay, I've got some scratches on there, and I think I said before I'm probably going to want to come back to this later. I didn't want to go too heavy on it. I wanted to have some scratches on there. It's part of the overall look of the weathering. But I didn't want it to be overdone. That's the upside. That's the, yeah, okay. This is the upper portion here. So I'm going to do some washes. And I've got Vallejo Model Wash. And I have 6 different colors here. I've got oiled earth, brown, dark brown, rust, desert sand, and white. And I've never used the white before, so I'm actually kind of curious about how that'll work out. Now the dark brown, mostly want to do in the panel lines. And because of the pre-shade, the panel lines are already pretty dark to begin with, but this will really help bring them out even more, especially where the paint might have gone kind of heavy over them. So I've got a really fine brush. This is a Rosemary & Company Series 22 number 0, which is pretty much my go-to for fine detail work. I like these because the bristles are a little bit stiffer than the Winsor & Newtons that I normally use. And in general, I don't like a stiffer bristle, but for fine detail work, especially for eyes, I do like that extra bit of stiffness. So this is doing the panel lines is going to be, a fairly tedious bit of business here. One of the nice things about these washes is that they're not completely permanent like a paint would be, or like your GW shade might be. You can go back over it once it's dry with a wet brush, and it'll pick up stuff that's on the surface. So it's kind of a nice way. I even did it here. If you can see the difference between sort of the lowest portions and the upper portions. After I washed in there, I went back with a wide brush, a damp wide brush, and then just sort of wiped away some of the excess color on the surface, and it left the darker brown in the recess, and it looked really nice. But the other things I'm going to do here, like one of the things I wanted to experiment with the white is doing things like, you know, maybe the color is bleeding off of the striping. It's a little heavy. And the desert yellow might be a good way to age this as well. It's a little bright. I don't know. This is all experimentation. Every weathering project is a little bit of things you might have done in the past, and then experimenting with what you're doing now and trying to make the best of it. Let me see what else I got here. I got the brown. Oh, I got the rust. I don't think I've actually used the rust much before either. I don't know how that's going to look over the red, so let's do some right here. Because these are washes, the color is not super dense, so you can kind of see how thin that is. Oh, let's see if you can see this. Can you see the white streaking right there? That's pretty cool. A little bit big. I think I'd want to go a little lighter on that. But I can also, as I said, go back and blend it out some. So that's not too bad. I can play with that. These areas in here, let's try the, this is oiled earth. This is like just sort of a dirt color. Drop that into there. Get rid of some of the excess. Flip it over. Oops, that's just brown. Not too much of a difference between the brown and the oiled earth. So I think I'm going to go ahead and finish this up off camera, and then we'll come back and show you how it's coming along. Yeah, so just going to be a lot of kind of going through and changing colors and experimentation and wiping things off that I don't like, and yeah. Did I do? I did, okay. One thing to keep in mind, like for doing that kind of dripping, got to keep in mind the although the ship sits in space, you still want to kind of pretend that gravity works, you know, top to bottom. So streaking from here is going to go down, but on the bottom, it's not going to go inwards. It would also go down, so it's going to be a little bit different there. Anyway, I'm going to get to it. I'll be back. Well, I'm pretty much done for today. I didn't have as much time to work on things as I might have liked, but I did do a lot of panel lines. I decided after inking in some of them, or washing in some of them with the Vallejo washes, that I would have an easier time of it using a pen. And I've used these Micron, Pigma Micron 005 pens for doing panel lines a lot in the past, and they just work great. The only difficulty is that doing panel lines does tend to kind of ruin the tips over time, so it's best to have a couple of them on hand if you're going to use them. I was using a lot of different colors, you know, experimenting with the different colors. I really like the oily earth is good, and the dark brown is good. The rust, not so much. It on the red anyway, it just seems to kind of slightly discolor it. And I didn't get to play with the white as much as I liked, but so if you can, I think you can see the difference between like this striping and this striping. So this striping is still clean, whereas this has the oily earth wash over it. Same back here. Back here. And, oh, yeah. Still have some on my fingers. Oh, it's coming from up front. Okay. Anyway, so tomorrow I'm going to work on that some more, and I'll show you how to remove some of the excess, because I know I have some that I want to get rid of, and then I'm going to have to go through and just do some more. And you know, weathering is one of those things you just sort of keep going until you're done. But the other thing I have to do is the markings, and I still am not quite 100% sure about where those are going to go. I've been thinking up here, and that's still my best option, I think. I was thinking also maybe back here, but I think up there is the way to go. And there's some reasons why it doesn't work quite so well. Mostly just the panel lines. But I think I can work around it, and we'll discuss how I'm going to approach the decals that I'm going to do. And I may be doing a combination of decal and hand painting, using the decals as a guide. But we'll see where that goes tomorrow. I'm going to have to finish up my artwork and print those out, and then, you know, get going. Okay, but that's it for today. Thank you for watching again, and I will talk to you on the next one.